What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what should be a routine talk show appearance, only to find himself face to face with a host who seems more interested in stirring up controversy than having a genuine conversation? What you're about to witness is the moment Denzel Washington reached his breaking point on live television. And trust me, you've never seen anything quite like this before. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this story is going to leave you speechless. The Kelly Clarkson Show was supposed to be a safe space, a feel-good environment where celebrities could promote their latest projects while sharing heartwarming stories. But on this particular day, something was different. Kelly had been dealing with declining ratings, and the network executives had been breathing down her neck about creating more buzzworthy moments. She'd been told that controversy sells, that viral moments drive engagement, and that sometimes you have to push boundaries to get people talking. Denzel Washington walked onto the set with his usual composed demeanor, dressed impeccably in a charcoal gray suit that somehow managed to look both casual and formal at the same time. He greeted the audience with that signature smile, the one that had charmed moviegoers for decades, and settled into the guest chair with the kind of confidence that only comes from years of experience in the spotlight. Denzel Washington. "Everybody," Kelly announced to the studio audience, her voice carrying that trademark enthusiasm that had made her a household name. But there was something else there, too. Something that those who knew her well might have recognized as nervous energy, the kind that comes when you're about to do something you're not entirely comfortable with. "Thanks for having me, Kelly," Denzel replied, his deep voice carrying that familiar warmth that had made him one of America's most beloved actors. "I've been looking forward to this." "Well, we're excited to have you here," Kelly said, shuffling through her cards with what seemed like unnecessary urgency. "I mean, Denzel Washington, two-time Academy Award winner, one of the greatest actors of our generation. But you know what I find interesting about you?" Denzel raised an eyebrow slightly, a gesture so subtle most viewers probably missed it. "What's that? You've been in Hollywood for what, 40 years now? And in all that time, you've managed to stay pretty clean, haven't you? I mean, no scandals, no controversies, no messy divorces or public meltdowns. That's pretty unusual for someone in your position." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the direction they'd expected the interview to go. Denzel's expression remained pleasant, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I've been blessed," he said simply. "I've got a strong family, strong faith, and I try to keep my priorities straight." "But come on," Kelly pressed, leaning forward in her chair with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nobody's that perfect. There's got to be something, some secret you're hiding, some mistake you've made that you don't want people to know about." The studio fell silent. Even the cameraman seemed to sense that something was off. Denzel's posture didn't change, but his voice took on a different quality when he spoke. "I'm not perfect, Kelly. Never claimed to be. But I don't think that's why I'm here today." "Actually, that's exactly why you're here," Kelly said, her smile becoming more forced. "I mean, let's be honest with each other. You're here to promote your new movie, but my audience wants to know who you really are. They want to see behind the mask." "There's no mask," Denzel said, his voice remaining steady but carrying a warning that Kelly seemed determined to ignore. "What you see is what you get. Really. Because I've been doing some research, and I found some interesting things about your past. Want to talk about your college years? Some of the parties you went to? The drinking?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Denzel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained controlled. "I was a young man in college. I made some mistakes, learned from them, and moved on. That's what people do when they grow up. But you were arrested, weren't you, for drunk and disorderly conduct? That was over 40 years ago, Kelly. I was 19 years old. But you were arrested." "Yes, I was arrested, and I learned from it. It was one of the reasons I got serious about my life, about my career, about becoming the man I wanted to be. Kelly leaned back in her chair, clearly pleased with herself for getting this admission. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's the real Denzel Washington, not this perfect image you've cultivated. I never cultivated a perfect image, Denzel said, his voice rising slightly for the first time. I just tried to live my life with integrity and dignity. There's a difference, is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've spent decades hiding who you really are. The audience was completely silent now. Even the production crew seemed frozen, unsure of whether they should intervene or let this play out. Who I really am, Denzel said, looking directly at her, is a man who's worked hard for everything he's achieved. A man who's been married to the same woman for over 30 years. A man who's raised 4 children and tried to set a good example for them. A man who's used his platform to try to make a positive difference in the world. If that's not real enough for you, then I don't know what is. But that's just it, Kelly said, her voice taking on a sharper edge. It's too clean. It's too perfect. Nobody's life is that neat and tidy. What are you hiding? I'm not hiding anything, Denzel said, his composure beginning to crack. But I'm starting to wonder what you're trying to prove here. I'm trying to give my audience an honest conversation with one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Is that too much to ask? This isn't honest, Denzel replied. This is tabloid journalism disguised as entertainment. The tension in the studio was palpable. Kelly's smile had completely disappeared, replaced by something that looked almost predatory. You know what I think? She said, her voice dropping to a more intimate tone that somehow made her words more cutting. I think you're scared. I think you're scared that if people see who you really are, they won't like what they find. Denzel stared at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but filled with an intensity that made everyone in the studio lean forward. Lady, I don't know what's gotten into you today, but you're way out of line. Am I? Or am I just asking the questions that other people are too afraid to ask? You're not asking questions. You're making accusations. And you're doing it on live television. For what? Ratings? Clicks? Is that what this is about? Kelly's mask slipped for just a moment, and the audience could see something ugly underneath. This is about giving people what they want to see. What they want to see is you tearing down someone who's worked hard to build something meaningful. That's what you think people want? I think people want authenticity. I think they're tired of celebrities who pretend to be something they're not. Then let me be authentic with you, Denzel said, standing up from his chair. This conversation is over. Sit down, Denzel, Kelly said, her voice taking on a commanding tone that surprised everyone in the studio. We're not finished here. Denzel looked down at her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and growing anger. Oh, we're finished. We're definitely finished. No, we're not, Kelly insisted, gesturing for him to return to his seat. You came on my show, and you're going to answer my questions. That's how this works. That's how this works? Denzel repeated, his voice rising. Lady, I've been doing interviews for longer than you've been alive. I know how this works. And this isn't it. The studio audience was completely silent now, watching this unprecedented confrontation unfold. Some were pulling out their phones. Others were simply staring in shock. The production crew was frantically trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or let the drama play out. You're being dramatic, Kelly said, but her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. I'm just trying to have a real conversation with you. A real conversation, Denzel said. Denzel laughed, but there was no humor in it. You call ambushing someone with decades-old mistakes a real conversation? You call trying to humiliate someone on live television a real conversation? I call it journalism, Kelly shot back, her defiance returning. I call it giving people the truth instead of some sanitized version of reality. The truth? Denzel's voice was incredulous. You want the truth? Here's the truth. I came here today to talk about my work, to maybe inspire some young people watching at home, to have a pleasant conversation with someone I thought was a professional. Instead, I find myself sitting across from someone who's more interested in tearing people down than building them up. That's not what I'm doing, Kelly protested, but her words lacked conviction. That's exactly what you're doing, Denzel fired back. And you know what the real tragedy is? You're good at this. You're talented. You could be using your platform to do something meaningful, something positive. Instead, you're turning it into a circus. Kelly's face flushed red. Don't you dare lecture me about how to do my job. Then don't give me a reason to, Denzel replied. You want to know who I really am? I'm someone who believes in treating people with respect. I'm someone who believes in lifting people up instead of tearing them down. I'm someone who believes that just because you have a microphone and a camera doesn't give you the right to humiliate people for entertainment. You're being sanctimonious, Kelly said, her voice dripping with disdain. You're acting like you're better than everyone else. I'm not better than anyone, Denzel said, his voice softening slightly. But I'm also not worse than anyone, and I'm not going to sit here and let you pretend that I am. You know what your problem is, Kelly said, leaning forward aggressively. You can't handle it when someone doesn't kiss your feet. You're so used to everyone treating you like royalty that you can't deal with someone asking you tough questions. Tough questions? Denzel's composure cracked completely. You call digging up 40-year-old police reports tough questions? You call trying to manufacture controversy where none exists tough questions? That's not journalism. That's tabloid trash. Everything I mentioned is public record, Kelly said defensively. I have every right to ask about it. You have the right, Denzel agreed. But just because you have the right to do something doesn't make it right to do it. There's a difference between having the right to hurt someone and having the reason to hurt them. I'm not trying to hurt you, Kelly said, but her voice was less certain now. Then what are you trying to do? Denzel asked, spreading his hands wide. Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you're trying to tear down someone who's never done anything to you. Someone who came here in good faith. Someone who spent his entire career trying to be a positive influence. I'm trying to show people that celebrities aren't perfect, Kelly said, her voice rising again. I'm trying to show them that you're just like everyone else. But I never said I was perfect, Denzel replied, his voice filled with frustration. I never claimed to be anything other than what I am, a man who's made mistakes, learned from them, and tried to do better. Why is that so threatening to you? It's not threatening, Kelly said, but her body language suggested otherwise. It's just not honest. What's not honest about it? Denzel demanded. What's not honest about a man working hard, staying faithful to his wife, raising his children, and trying to use his success to help others? What's dishonest about that? It's too clean, Kelly insisted. It's too perfect. People don't live like that. Some people do, Denzel said quietly. Some people choose to live with integrity. Some people choose to do the right thing even when it's hard. Some people choose to be better than their worst moments. And, apparently, that's something you can't understand. The words hung in the air like a slap. Kelly's face went white, then red, then white again. When she spoke, her voice was barely controlled. Get out, she said. What? Denzel asked, taken aback. I said get out, Kelly repeated, her voice getting louder. Get off my show. Get out of my studio. I don't have to sit here and let you insult me. I'm insulting you? Denzel's voice was incredulous. You spent the last 20 minutes trying to humiliate me on live television, and I'm the one who's being insulting? You called me dishonest, Kelly said, her voice shaking with rage. You said I couldn't understand integrity. You sat there and acted like you're better than me. I never said I was better than you, Denzel replied, his voice calm again. I said I was disappointed in you. There's a difference. Well, I'm disappointed in you, too, Kelly shot back. I'm disappointed that one of Hollywood's so-called good guys turned out to be such a sanctimonious jerk. And I'm disappointed that one of America's sweethearts turned out to be a bully, Denzel replied without missing a beat. The studio erupted, not in applause, but in a collective gasp that seemed to suck all the oxygen out of the room. Kelly's face went through a series of expressions: shock, hurt, fury, before settling on something that looked like pure hatred. "Security!" she called out, her voice cutting through the silence. "I want him removed from the building now." "Kelly," one of the producers said, stepping forward cautiously. "Maybe we should take a break and talk about this." "No," Kelly said, not taking her eyes off Denzel. "I want him gone. This is my show, and I want him out of here." Denzel looked around the studio, taking in the faces of the crew, the audience, the production staff. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked angry. A few looked like they were trying not to smile. He straightened his jacket and looked directly at Kelly. "You don't have to call security," he said quietly. "I'll leave. But I want you to know something. You had a chance today to have a real conversation with someone who's lived through some things, someone who might have had something valuable to share. Instead, you chose to try to tear me down for entertainment. That says more about you than it does about me." "Just leave," Kelly said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm leaving," Denzel said, starting to walk toward the exit. "But I'll be praying for you, because anyone who gets their joy from trying to hurt others, well, they need all the prayers they can get." He was almost to the edge of the stage when Kelly's voice stopped him. "Don't you dare pray for me," she said, her voice filled with venom. "Don't you dare act like you're some kind of saint." "I'm not acting like anything," Denzel said, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to fill the entire studio. "I'm just being who I've always been. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then maybe you should ask yourself why." Kelly stood up from her chair, her hands trembling with rage. "You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? You think because you've got your fancy awards and your perfect little life that you can look down on the rest of us." "I don't look down on anyone," Denzel replied, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around him. "But I also don't look up to people who use their platform to hurt others. And right now, that's exactly what you're doing." "I'm hurting you?" Kelly's voice cracked with disbelief. "You're the one who came on my show and made me look like a fool in front of my audience." "You made yourself look like a fool," Denzel said quietly. "I just refuse to help you make me look like one too." The audience was completely silent now, some covering their mouths in shock, others recording everything on their phones. The production crew stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this unprecedented meltdown continue. "You know what?" Kelly said, her voice rising to a near shout. "I'm glad this happened. I'm glad people get to see who you really are. Behind all that charm and all those inspiring speeches, you're just another arrogant Hollywood actor who thinks he's untouchable. And you're just another talk show host who's forgotten that real people are sitting in front of you," Denzel replied. Denzel shot back. "People with feelings, people with families, people who don't deserve to be attacked for your entertainment." "Nobody attacked you," Kelly protested. "I asked you some questions. If you can't handle questions, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." "Those weren't questions," Denzel said, his voice rising for the first time. "Those were ambushes. Those were attempts to humiliate me. And you know the difference, even if you won't admit it." "Fine," Kelly said, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "You want to know the truth? The real truth? My ratings are down. The network is breathing down my neck. They told me I needed to create more buzz, more viral moments. They said I needed to push boundaries." The admission hung in the air like a confession. Denzel stared at her, his expression shifting from anger to something that looked almost like pity. "So, You decided to push boundaries by trying to destroy someone's reputation? He asked quietly. I decided to do my job, Kelly said, but her voice lacked conviction. I decided to give people what they want to see. What they want to see is you tearing down a man who's never done anything to hurt you. A man who came here to promote his work and maybe inspire some people. That's what you think people want? People want authenticity, Kelly said, but she was clearly struggling now. They want to see that celebrities aren't perfect. Then show them your own imperfections, Denzel said, his voice softening slightly. Show them your struggles, your mistakes, your journey to become better. Don't try to manufacture flaws in other people to make yourself feel better about your own. Don't psychoanalyze me, Kelly snapped, but tears were starting to form in her eyes. I'm not psychoanalyzing you, Denzel said gently. I'm just telling you what I see. I see someone who's scared, someone who's under pressure, someone who's forgotten who they used to be. You don't know who I used to be, Kelly said, wiping at her eyes. I know who you were when you started, Denzel replied. I remember watching you on American Idol, watching you sing your heart out, watching you connect with people through your music. That person, that authentic person, she's still in there somewhere. Don't, Kelly said, her voice breaking. Don't try to be nice to me now. Not after what I did. What you did was wrong, Denzel agreed. But that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you made a bad choice. We all make bad choices sometimes. I made a terrible choice, Kelly said, her voice barely above a whisper. I let them convince me that this was okay, that this was just how the business works now. Well, it's not how I work, Denzel said firmly. And it doesn't have to be how you work either. Kelly looked around the studio, taking in the faces of her crew, her audience, the cameras that were still rolling. When she spoke, her voice was filled with shame. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry to my audience. I'm sorry to everyone who believed in me. This isn't who I wanted to be. Then don't be this person, Denzel said simply. Choose to be better. Choose to be the person who lifts people up instead of tearing them down. It's too late, Kelly said, gesturing around the studio. This is all being recorded. This is going to be everywhere. My career is over. Your career isn't over, Denzel said, surprising everyone in the studio. But it might be changing. And maybe that's not a bad thing. How can you say that? Kelly asked, looking at him with confusion. How can you be kind to me after what I just did to you? Because holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts you, Denzel replied. Because forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of carrying that pain. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Kelly said, fresh tears streaming down her face. None of us deserve forgiveness, Denzel said quietly. That's what makes it so powerful when we receive it. The studio was completely silent now, the weight of the moment settling over everyone present. Finally, Kelly spoke again, her voice stronger than it had been in minutes. I need to make this right, she said. I need to apologize properly, not just to you, but to everyone watching. That's a start, Denzel agreed. But the real work happens when the cameras stop rolling. The real work is choosing to be better tomorrow than you were today. Will you accept my apology? Kelly asked, her voice small and uncertain. I already have, Denzel said. But the person you really need to apologize to is yourself. You need to forgive yourself for losing your way. And then you need to find your way back. Kelly nodded, wiping at her eyes. I will. I promise I will. Good, Denzel said, adjusting his jacket. Now I think I should go. But Kelly, I want you to know something. You're talented. You're smart. And you have a platform that could do real good in this world. Don't waste it trying to be someone you're not. Thank you, Kelly said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. I never give up on people, Denzel said with a slight smile. "That's not who I am." He walked toward the exit, but this time his steps were measured, dignified. At the edge of the stage, he turned back one final time. "Take care of yourself, Kelly. And remember, it's never too late to choose to be better." As he disappeared backstage, the studio remained in stunned silence. Kelly stood alone on her stage, tears streaming down her face. But for the first time in the entire interview, she looked genuinely authentic. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of this unprecedented television event. What started as an attempt to create viral content had become something much deeper, much more real than anyone could have anticipated. And there you have it, one of the most intense confrontations in television history, where Hollywood royalty met talk show controversy, and somehow, against all odds, grace won out over sensationalism. Who do you think was right in this argument? Comment below.